I wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences of actually bootstrapping a company in a way that you could take from today and go out and implement. The number one thing that I really want to kind of instill upon you today is the biggest absence that I see in people that sometimes struggle. Everybody has it, but they don't activate, is what I call your execution muscle. Your ability to go out and act upon the ideas that you have in your head, right? That ability to actually act. That there's this whole kind of esoteric space that we call, okay, I've got this kind of idea and I've got this strategy. And we're going to be talking a little bit about strategy and actions and kind of tools and techniques that you can go out and implement in the world. But nothing is ever going to get done, absolutely ever, if you don't just build a framework for actually executing, actually just doing stuff, right? Guys, you want to make money from your businesses and you want to grow really fast and you want to change your life. Use any means necessary to do what you can. Now, don't send stupid emails, don't spam people. But of course, if you want to send a smart targeted email, then why not? I respond to every email that I get. Rob even forwards me the spammy emails that he receives from these Indians because I say yes to absolutely everybody. It's how I developed a Craigslist automation thing that generates business for me. Because I say yes to everybody because I'm like, yep, 5 minute call, 5 minute call. What's your offer? How much does it cost? Let's see. This guy's like, dude, I can bring you leads from Craigslist. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, what's the cost? He's like, 50 quid. No, he was like, a couple hundred quid a month. I was like, can we do a trial, 2 weeks, 50 quid? He was like, yeah, cool. So I said yes. I reverse engineered his process. I dumped him and then I started doing it myself. And I would never have done that had I not said yes. So I answer cold email. I think there's other people in here that might answer cold email. I answer it to the extent that I ask Rob to forward me his cold emails that he gets, and he'll vouch for that. So definitely, and I think that the reality here is that you need to kind of apply the 10x rule to the things that you do. Assume if it's useful to you, there's people like me that are doing 10 times the amount of activity that you are in the same period. And when you think on that, because I think on that basis as well, right? And when I think like that, I'm like, hey, Juan, come in.
How are you doing?
Hey, good to see you. So Juan is another local resident. We met in a cafe. I spoke with him as well at Chelsea Football Club. Juan, come and have a seat. Okay, cool, perfect. Yeah. Go ahead. So I found that to be really useful. Like if you really take a hard look at the activity that you're doing, you'll quickly discover that you could be doing 10 times more than you're doing. And what's really interesting is that it doesn't mean it takes 10 times the amount of time. This is often the biggest second obstacle that people have in their head. They're like, Deepak, I don't have as many hours as you. Deepak, I only got 6 hours a week. I've got a long commute home. My dog's ill. My wife is mad at me. I've got to make rent and kind of all of this stuff that comes up, right? So what's really powerful in situations like that? I mean, does that resonate with anybody that they're time poor? That they feel that I've got a limited amount of time to really run my business. Cool. So we've got one there. We had another nod there. Ravi's nodding his head. Everyone, okay, perfect. So if you've got for those who have got lots of time, amazing. The question that you should really ask is, how can I 10x the amount of activity in the time that I have? When you start reframing the question, then it becomes really powerful. Like, how can I do 10 times the amount of stuff in the 1 hour that I've got? What could I do to expand my time, right? So when you start asking yourself the right questions, you start finding answers. So one of the things I really quickly discovered when I was giving instruction to people, I was like, oh my God, this sucks saying the same thing 10 times a day. So I started screencasting absolutely everything that I had to explain to somebody. So if you were to work for me today, there's 100 videos that you need to watch to go through every fucking process. Probably 30% of them are redundant. But it saves me from repeating myself. Because if I want to show you how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and a LinkedIn automation tool, and I know that maybe in 3 months you're going to go off on your jolly kind of ride, it's going to really suck if I have to explain it to somebody else again. And that has been a way that I've been able to create time. So that small instance, think about how that applies to what you do, right? And we'll go through a couple of practical things right now. These are all what I call massive time savers. If your laptop takes more than 45 seconds to get onto the internet, throw your laptop away. because mine takes 30 seconds, and every time I open it up and open up my windows, over time that's going to compound massively. The second thing that does is create momentum. I'm busy in the process of doing the work instead of trying to get access to the work because, it's taking ages. That creates peace of mind that allows me to open 15 tabs at one time. It allows me to do lots of other things. So if it takes more than 45 seconds to load, figure it out. The same thing applies to your phone. Right? If you haven't worked out how to switch from WhatsApp to email to LinkedIn within 15 seconds, then it's taking too long. Fix it. So look at the core infrastructural things that you do as a part of your processes and really ask yourself if you're doing them as fast as you could. Because that's been one of the big ways that I've also been able to create time to allow me to build pipelines, because you know what? I can get onto LinkedIn faster than you. Sounds silly, but I'm on LinkedIn 100 times a day. That means I'm 100 times, in 100 instances across one day, I'm getting onto the platform that's going to generate business for me every day. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's one of the things that really massively surprises me when I sometimes look at people with their machines. Are you using all the plugins? Are you using all the tools? Are you using all the shortcuts? If you're not, if you're not, use them. If it feels like it's hard work, of course, it's going to be. It's just kind of how the game is. And I think that one of the biggest discoveries I certainly personally had when I went to apply, for example, to the Special Forces, was that I thought that I was operating at a pretty high kind of operating standard, right? And then I met these men that were fucking up here in terms of their ability to do swims, to run across mountains with Bergens, in terms of their tactical intelligence, with even something small as how they would remove themselves from their sleeping bag and crawl, go through undetected at night, to all of these drills and operations, right? And it was really depressingly hard and painful getting drilled massively upon weapons training, upon ordnance, upon IEDs, upon counterterrorism, upon first aid, 6 to 9 hours of lessons day upon day, and then you get tested instantly, right? And sometimes, some of the things I'm talking to you about now are probably going to feel a little bit like that. It's going to be like, whoa, Deepak, that's a lot of information. That's a lot of stuff. And that's what I call building your execution muscle. Because that's it. It's the same as doing HIIT training. It's painful, and it's not a lot of fun when you're trying to optimize 15 things at once, and your brain's going to say, this hurts, this sucks. Good. It's meant to, because then you will slowly increase your minimum operating standard. And you will see the difference over time at how you operate versus the people around you. You're just going to kind of do that. And that kind of core principle with listing on profiles, with deciding to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, with thinking, okay, so I'm messaging these people on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. How can I automate this? Because this is really boring. Okay, let me Google LinkedIn automation tool. Oh, wow, there's these tools that I can use. Okay, let's just try and use that tool. The actual act of doing all of those things is actually relatively quite quick. It's this thing that slows you down. It's, what about LinkedIn terms of service? Well, this tool looks quite good, but it's $20 a month, and this is $15 a month. I'm not sure. This might be really good. That might be These are what I call kind of BS problems that really prevent you from actually being a success. And then and this is the part that's going to be funny. And then we'll all go out, obviously, and spend 50 quid down the pub with our mates. And then you kind of rationalize it. Build your execution muscle. Force yourself to spend things that will deliver you a massive return over time. So one of the other things I did was that, I will allocate 50 quid. Now it's grown as I've got more money. But in the beginning, when I really had no money, I allocated £50 a month to what I called punts. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to put a Gumtree ad up. BB, the only reason that I put a Gumtree ad up recently was because I was talking to Ravi in the back room about the process of Gumtree as an actual area for getting leads. So I put one up as an example, and then you contacted me.
Well, I got this group, and I don't know anything about it, about the topics that they wanted.
Yep.
So I said, I can't deliver this, I have to get somebody else to deliver it. And where else could I go? I'll try Gumtree and see if there are people there. And I got a few. Really you.
Absolutely. So that's like serendipity for you, and the randomness of that happening only really happened because I've really worked hard to shorten the space between what I think about and actually doing what I think about. Does that make sense to everybody? Is there anybody here who has a problem with that or thinks that, oh, I don't quite get it? Okay, cool, brilliant. So far so good. And you know, the reason I've hammered on so much about this stuff is because there isn't going to be a singular strategy that I'll give you that's definitely going to work for you today, right? It's not that LinkedIn Sales Navigator is going to be the way. There's lots of things that you can do. But if you go out and figure out how to do 100 things in like an hour, and you won't, you'll fail because that's really hard. But the act of doing it will allow you to build speed over time. And that's kind of what's been very, very useful for me in my journey as I've built those case studies, as I've been like, right, let me try and automate LinkedIn. Right, maybe I should cold email. How do I cold email? Okay, I'm going to go on YouTube. Okay, let me go on YouTube. Let me Google how to cold email. Okay, cool. There's these 10 different blog articles. Okay, cool. Let me put them all up in 10 tabs. Oh, my MacBook loads up in 30 seconds. Yours loads up in a minute. Haha, I'm going to beat you. All right, cool. Let me find these. Does it make sense what I'm saying? That how you can really compress your learning. And when you can do that on a consistent basis, the volume of information that you're able to assimilate, because you're going to pick out 10% from all the things that you go to, right? Pop, pop, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's going to really integrate and compound over time. So now, in the final 10 minutes that we've got, let's go through very quickly some of those questions that people asked about. So, Femi, you asked about tattoos. Let's talk about that. So I got my first tattoo when I was 18. I was drunk in a bar in Koh Phangan in Thailand. I was backpacking before university, and I was with a chap called Mike from Kent. Got drunk and started talking with an Irish accent. He was fully Kent, but his family were from Ireland, and we got in lots of trouble with that because he'd want to get aggressive. But we had a bet when we were drunk that if he got his lip pierced, I'd get a tattoo. And then at the bar, there happened to be a tattooist. And then 20 minutes later, I was getting tattooed. So that was the beginning of that journey. That was at 18. My first tattoo was Orm on my back, and that was the first tattoo that I presented to my family, because I thought, well, mummy and daddy are going to be pissed because they're British Indians, and well, I'm British Indian, they're Indian Indians, and they're like, you know, my dad would be like, Deepak, what have you done? Oh my God, this is not good. What did you get? I got Om. Oh. Okay, let me take a look. Oh, it's quite nice. So you know, there's that whole thing, and that has evolved into, fuck it, let me just do more of them because I enjoy them. And I haven't really, I've gone on to just get loads of tattoos, dude. That was the first one. The second one was Sitaram, my mum and dad's name. And I started slowly, and then I began increasing my volume. I went from getting 1 hour, 2 hour tattoo times to let's do a fucking 8 hour day. Fuck it. And then you find out when you rock up that that's a really dumb thing to do. And that was kind of a journey in of itself. So that's been does that answer your question? And I've got spelling mistakes, I've got cover-ups, I've got like some, you know, I've got what I thought was my rap CD cover that looks like an omelette on my leg, basically. People are like, dude, this looks ridiculous. So I've got like a whole variety of things. Did you have a question? Okay, cool. So that answers the question about tattoos a little bit, I think.
So do you regret any of them?
Oh no, absolutely not. There you go. Yeah, exactly. It's the thing is thinking. No, I don't. I think that they're great stories, especially the mistakes. They're the best stories. You know, I was an English literature student, and I was in Florianópolis in Brazil, and I'm rocking up to the actual tattoo place with my mate, and he's like, dude, have you spelled unknown fucking wrong? And I was like, oh, it's her fault. It's like, dude, she doesn't speak any fucking English. It's clearly, so that was quite funny. So yeah, there have been moments like that. So LinkedIn growth was another one. Cool. So I have 50 recommendations. Go out and get your mum, your son, your dad, your auntie, uncle, Sam to all write your recommendations, number one. Number two, post consistently. I post a status update every damn day. The mechanics of building your LinkedIn profile are not that hard to say. They're hard to do. But it's a little bit like I have much more opportunity to go viral, as I have done a couple of times, because I'm in the game a lot more than you are. And the sheer fact of being in the room, Woody Allen talks about 80% of life is just showing up. LinkedIn is a playground, show up on LinkedIn. So the thing to play devil's advocate, the thing that I would say is come back to me when you've posted consistently for 90 days and let's see what your growth looks like. And always be connecting. I accept every connection request that I get ever. I don't make any pairing decisions because some of the business that I've got, I generate maybe 15 to 20, about 15 grand kind of revenue just from LinkedIn, people that approach me. And my biggest client to date approached me as a consequence of a student who seemingly had nothing to do with my business. I accepted it and I was like, hey mate, thank you for kind of, responding. And then he liked my post and then it came up in his news feed and then he approached me. So hopefully that underlines the power of just accepting absolutely everybody. Like what, size, in terms of your social network, guess what? It does fucking matter. So build it, I'd say. So does that answer your question about LinkedIn? No. Any more questions specifically about LinkedIn?
Do you, which kind of messaging sequence do you have on LinkedIn?
I use Linked Helper, which is a LinkedIn automation tool. And then I have Rebecca, who is kind of my virtual assistant or whatever. She's full-time. She will go in and have a standardized message that she sends to absolutely everybody. So she logs in every 48 hours and she'll say, hey Femi, thank you so much for responding to me. This is my Facebook Messenger bot. This is what I do. If you want to talk, let's talk. And then she'll send that out to, I'll get approximately maybe 30 requests, like 15 requests a day. She'll accept everybody. And that will always generate a steady flow of inbound leads. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So let's now talk about FBA, Amazon FBA, and a little bit about kind of dropshipping e-commerce. So dum-de-dum-de-dum, I know more about e-commerce and dropshipping, so we'll start with that and then we're going to talk about Amazon FBA. So I'm in the midst of experimenting with an e-commerce store that I just set up. It's called Can't Sleep. It's focusing upon kind of anti-snoring. I'll just very quickly talk you through what I did and how I discovered it wasn't really that hard. So number one, I Googled easiest platform to start an e-commerce store on. Everyone said Shopify. I then Googled Shopify price. I was like, $29 a month. I was like, okay, so I could give it a 6-month punt, $180, like maybe 130 quid. Could I spend 130 quid on 6 months? Okay, cool. That was my decision. So then I just signed up immediately, put it on my credit card. Fine, that was done. The third decision was, okay, cool. I don't know anything about snoring or sleeping, but I do need some products. So I also need to figure out how to do this dropshipping game works. So then I Googled best apps to dropship with Shopify. I read a couple of Quora posts. I picked one. I was like, okay, cool. This sounds simple enough. So then I found out about AliExpress. So you're probably already familiar with it. So everything that I'm probably telling you, you're already familiar with. I'd say just do it, dude. The cost of doing it is cheap. It's you don't pay anything up front, right? There's no infrastructural because you're dropshipping. So I'd say just start and experiment and your data points will tell you everything else. Let's just say you pick clothes. Clothes are, let's say, visual. Then if you're targeting females and clothing, I'd pick a platform that makes sense for females in clothing. And that might be Instagram, it might be Pinterest. And I would seek to learn absolutely everything I can about Pinterest. I would then spend probably 6 to 8 hours across the course of 2 weeks, probably less if you're up for it. Take a whole Saturday, tell the wife and kids I'm busy, learn everything you can, the day after implement everything you can, figure out some of those processes, screencast those processes, and then find Matthew in South Africa to start doing those processes. Does that make sense? That you can build some things that you know work. I need to pin every day. Cool. Pin yourself, 50 pins, figure out the process, and then outsource it. Does that make sense? That's exactly what I'm doing to build my actual e-commerce business. I've got a full-time social media manager. I built a couple of core processes. I figured out, right, this will take me about 15 minutes per post. I can afford maybe 10 posts a week maybe. That's already great. I figured out the cost of actually having a social media manager to follow my processes was about $50 a month. I was like, oh my God, this is nothing. What have I been waiting for? But it's the act of just going through that, what I call the sticky process, or the unclear process of figuring out a platform. And that's the bit where your brain was like, oh, your amygdala kicks in and you're like, I'm scared, this is new, this is weird, fuck it, just go through it.
So you're actually outsourcing all those.
Yeah, absolutely. And that may be wrong. But I know that I'm time poor like yourself when it comes to the e-commerce, but I want it to work, I want it to scale, and I can definitely tell you that I know way more now than I did even 2 months ago because I've begun the journey. Does that make sense? Sure. Perfect. Similar things apply to Amazon FBA. It's really not that different in terms of what I said. The only other difference would say is that Amazon FBA has a little bit of an on-page SEO component to it. So what you could do, what I often do, is just look at your competitors. Same thing that I did with the spreadsheet thing, where I was like, right, I want to run an SEO agency. I want to kind of leech off other people's research. Find your 10 best competitors, compare all of their ads, and copy what you perceive to be all of the best elements and start applying it to your listing, because there's a lot more on-page at work with Amazon, broadly speaking, than there is, say, with Google. The fields get smaller, so some of the on-page stuff is more impactful in a space like LinkedIn and Amazon than it is, of course, Google. There's a lot more involved. So I'd say that would be your first starting base. Second thing that obviously Amazon FBA allows, because you could get the whole thing set up. If you get no fucking traffic, it's not going to matter. Get some reviews, like fast, hard. Again, I don't know why people don't do this. Send your mate 100 quid. Send 5 of your mates 25 quid each. Get them all to buy your damn product from different IPs. Get them to review it. This is how I broke into iTunes Best for New Business. I got 10 mates. I got them all to write reviews. Now I'm in iTunes Best New for Business, and now I've got big companies contacting me saying, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. I'm like, brilliant, this works, this is great. So does that make sense? Yeah. Cool, follow that process. So that was that part. What else did I not cover?
SEO.
Cool. Did that help with some of your SEO questions?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, brilliant. Okay, so now I turn it over to you. Is there anything that I've really just not covered that you do want to ask me about in general?
Where do you buy your cold email lists?
Good question. I get someone from Fiverr to do it for me. I stopped using automated tools. Okay, so Femi's talking about how do I build a list of people that I want to email that I don't know, because you might be like, this is great, but then it becomes cumbersome and boring to actually build it. So then I went to Fiverr and Upwork, and I just start paying people to build lists. The term would be data miner. Search for data miner on Fiverr, data miner on Upwork. Be like, look, this is my LinkedIn Sales Navigator search string URL. There's 1,000 people. Can you scrape them and verify them? How much does it cost? Ask 10 people the same thing, and then get the best price, and then hope that that is your guy. And that's literally what I do now. I've stopped using those tools because they come with their own problems, which you've probably discovered, right? Yeah, cool. Does anyone have any other questions that they want to ask me specifically about anything?
Is it possible, if you send out a multiple email in the way you just described, is it possible to do that in a way that each recipient thinks that they're the sole recipient?
Yes.
BCC, not a compromise if
No,
if they get 2,000.
but close. So yes, so there's automated email tools. So there's many of them. I prefer a tool called Mailshake. It costs $19 a month, and really what it does is it allows you to add dynamic mail merge tags. So if it's Frank, George, Peter, and you want it to be, hey Frank, hey George, hey Peter, hey Tom, it will allow you, using a CSV file, to change the names per email sequence, and it will kind of batch send them. So Mailshake is my tool of preference. There are a ton. You could Google email automation tools. There's Close.io, Reply.io, Mailshake, Allure. There's more. So yes, in answer to your question. The second thing to add to that is the biggest mistake that people do make with cold email is that they email from their own domain. So it's a little bit like basically shouting to ask people in from your own address. At some point in time, people are going to begin avoiding your house or ignoring your house. So when you start sending cold emails, make sure you do it from a different domain, because from Google's perspective, that's a different address. So if you trash that address, it doesn't affect your actual main halls of residence. So that's kind of turn and burn. So that's when you can be more flexible with emailing people quickly and rapidly. Never do it from your own website.com. It's a really not the best approach. And sometimes people do that and say cold email's dead. It's not. It's that people often email from their own domains. Does that make sense?
I think you're saying that if you do that, then people will simply block you.
Yeah, so people can block you, and people probably will block you at some stage.
What's the alternative of sending emails from your own website?
Because then if your emails get blocked, it will affect your main course of business. So even
how do you get
so if you, for example, have your own website.com that you send emails from, or at Gmail, then I would set up your own website.co, your own website-.co, and I'd create a new email account and attach it to that.
Okay, so you need multiple email accounts, multiple
domains. But this is like super cheap. Buying I buy domains for like $3, and then I'll buy an email account with G Suite. It costs me £3.30. And then because I don't maybe not know how to do it, I go onto Fiverr and I say, yo mate, this is what I want. And I ask 10 people how much does it cost, and they're like, I'll do it for 50 quid. And I'll be like, can you screencast the process as you do it for an extra 50 quid? So then they screencast the entire process. I know how it works, and then I'm kind of off and away. And that has been sometimes the way that I've figured out how to use someone else's kind of intellect to solve my own problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look. What's Fiverr? You mentioned several times.
Yeah, so Fiverr is a freelancing platform that's predominantly populated by people from developing economies. It's Fiverr, meaning it costs $5 to buy a resource or a service, and you can get any manner of things on there, revolving from social media design, social media management. There's stuff that's more than $5, but underneath the actual infrastructure of Fiverr, you'll find a lot of very resourceful people that are interested in basically delivering services, and they have an eBay style kind of ranking system. So you can look at sellers that have X rating, X deliverables, so it gives you an independently verified filter that allows you to make better decisions as to, well, I can see your track record is independently verified in a way that I couldn't from just looking at someone's resume, because I don't know what you know, I can't verify that. So that's why it's really useful, and that's a freelancing platform of which there are several. So then you could Google Fiverr alternatives and find.
And the email information, was it mail?
Mailshake, so mail like an email and then shake like milkshake. Yep, exactly. Cool. So we've got another 10 minutes. And well, I could obviously talk for longer, which is not a problem, but I would ask, are there any other questions about specific strategic things or something that maybe I've not covered that you want to ask? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Any comments on the copywriting?
For?
Just in general.
Sure. Emails, like blog posts, or like when you say copywriting, where, in what, how would you use it?
Whether it's on LinkedIn or advertising, just to write stuff to a good standard. What's your thoughts on that, generally?
Okay, so some general things. I will Google templates. So I'll be like, okay, cold email template, PR reach out template, XXX template. So I'll take a couple and then I'll kind of pick one or some of them. That's a generalization. The biggest thing I think that people fail to do is add humor and personalization to their emails. That gets everything. The best cold email as well as LinkedIn sequence I ever sent is saying, hey, it's Deepak here. Still, unfortunately, still a really poor marathon runner. And people saying love the fact that you're crap at marathons, this is great, I'm trying to run. Some variation of that works way better than here's my amazing case study about how brilliant I am, because I think that people's BS radars are continually evolving, and it's very difficult to discern what is real versus what isn't, and no one can me running marathons and getting mediocre times is very personal to me. So that is very helpful, generally speaking. And that's a level of personalization that is very helpful when you're doing things at scale. Does that help? Cool. Sweet. Is there anything else that anyone wants to ask?
Yeah,
Hey.
Yeah, I'd like to come back to the time subject.
Mm-hmm.
How many projects do you manage at the moment, or how many businesses do you manage, and how do you organize yourself to make sure that it doesn't go too much, like that take too much of your life,
absolutely.
personal life?
Sure, it's a good question. There's no kind of defining line between my personal life and my professional. I do love what I do, right? So I'll be bored on a Friday and I'll go and be like, right, I want to do some work because I could watch a movie, but I enjoy this process. But I think the question you're asking is that how can I use my time like super effectively? Is that the question underneath?
It's more how many projects do you have
Sure.
at the moment,
So,
how many businesses, and how do you manage your time?
Sure. So the main business that generates like kind of my money is Pearl Lemon. That's the SEO agency. I chose SEO when I was going through that journey of digital marketing,
right,
because I discovered that people generally tend to sign long-term contracts and that there's less communication day to day. And I love that. I was like, oh my God, this is great. How can I sell it? But then it's a very hard sell because people buy into a result that they won't see for 3 to 6 months' time, and I'm selling it at £3,000 to £6,000 a month currently. So it's like people are like, "Wow, I've got to pony up 18 grand Deepak before I can get a result." I'm like, "Yeah." But that was why I chose that business. Also because I enjoyed it underneath it, and I looked at the things. As to how I then manage it, I have so that's first business. The second business is this e-commerce store. I'm trying it. It's not revenue generating.
Right.
I've just recently do some stuff with like trading. So like I've invested some money basically. I've invested some money in Rob. I've invested some money in Forex traders who kind of manage my money, and that's beginning to generate a secondary income stream. And I'm currently increasing the number of punts. When I say punts, I mean risking trying new things. So I've always wanted to launch a course. So I've got a mate who makes like 40 grand a month from selling on my courses. So I've given him 5 grand. I'm like, mate, help me launch my course, and he guarantees a result. So that's going to launch next month. I don't know what's going to happen. It could all fail, but I'm trying to at this stage diversify my income streams as aggressively and as quickly as possible, because just like the sales pipeline, I also want to act in the interest at what would happen if my SEO agency broke tomorrow. How could I cover my bases? So that's kind of something that I'm building in parallel, because I want to make sure that I'm covered. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Any other question? Yeah, hey, dude.
Yeah, recently hear some, you've heard some stories of some SEO people who you worked with, where you were very pleased with the outcome. Just a few stories.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, I'm just trying to think what in a way of answering that that's productive for everybody else. There's lots of things. So the biggest commercial hurdle that I had to get over that I still get over is that people are very tentative with paying for something that they're not going to see a result for in 3 to 6 months. So the way the workaround has been is, what can I do that can demonstrate a result today? So then within SEO, if I leave a review for your business, that's something that you can see the result of today, and that's kind of reputation management. So one of the things I'm quite quick to do is to make sure that there's a lot of basically reviews that will appear for a business. I'll be like, go out and I'll give them an infrastructure to tell their friends that everything I described, I'll give them that as a process, and I'll do that, like, let's do that for a week. You'll see how powerful this process is, and that's kind of an example of the deliverables that you'll get with me. So I do a very quick dry run, typically with people. That has been useful. And then in terms of results, I mean, yeah, we're doing some really good stuff in the payday loan space. We're outranking Wonga for a couple of keyword terms. The business is really happy. How are we doing that? We just try and I look at Wonga and I think, what are they not doing? So we do stuff with infographic submissions. So we get people on Fiverr to create these really pretty infographics. We share the hell out of them. We build retargeting campaigns on Facebook to retarget people that look at the infographics, and then we send them. So we do, it's blended SEO. SEO is not just ranking on Google. Ultimately, the biggest thing that anybody who gets into business cares about is, Deepak, can you help me make more money? So I very often change the nature of what I talk about. I'm like, your goal is that you want to work with me and you want to basically get 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 for every pound you spend, right? And they're like, yeah, great. So there's often a lot of quick wins outside of my core business area that I can help them with. So I often ended up getting involved with that. And when they recognize that my goals are aligned with their end goals, then selling the main thing becomes a lot easier, because they're like, Deepak wants to help me make money. Cool, I'm in, let's do it. So that's been very helpful. Does that answer your question? Perfect. Hey?
Could you give us like top 10 tools to use, or top 5 tools?
Yeah, sure.
Like that saves your life quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. LastPass. So LastPass is a password manager. A lot of you will be familiar with password managers. What most people don't do though, and okay, so LastPass is useful because I never have to remember a login again, and I also have it on my phone. So I have all of these different contractors that I work with. They're like, mate, what's the password for this? So I just go into the app and I'll ping them a password, even when I'm in a pub on a Friday night, because Rebecca is working at 2 p.m. in her office. She's like, Deepak, I need access to the WordPress admin for the website. So LastPass is number 1. Number 2 is Atext. So Atext costs $5. It's on the Mac App Store. You could Google Atext alternative. Basically, it's a text expander. So I'll write EMAY. Oh no, I'll write L1 is my LinkedIn URL, F1 is my Facebook URL, etc., etc. So I have 100 keyboard shortcuts to quickly ping people anything that I might want to give them. So that's very powerful when someone says, oh, Deepak, can you send me an email about your due diligence? And I immediately ping them a whole Google Drive directory with videos, with case studies, with this, with that, and they're like, wow, that was fast. But it's Atext, $5. That's the second one. A third one is, The third one, to be honest with you, is just having it sounds silly, but making sure your machine will open in 45 seconds. If it doesn't, so like a top-end spec, it's way worth the money. And then in terms of other tools that I use all the time, MonoSnap is a tool that I use. It's still, okay, AppSumo is a great space where you can find lifetime deals for software. So if you don't, some of you may know this, some of you may not. AppSumo.com. You can buy stuff for $50 and then you can use it for a lifetime. So it's very useful. And afterwards, email me with that question, and I'll send you a definitive list. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Which is the one that you use to create live videos?
Use Loom.
Send them to people.
Oh, yeah.
Use Loom.
Use Loom.
Yeah. So that's another useful thing. Change the format. So video has been massive for me in basically conversions. So I'm like, yo, dude, I'd love to work on your business. Hey, hey, Graham, just thought I'd make a quick video to introduce myself. My name's Deepak, just been looking through your reports. Really interested by this little data point. Would love to connect with you on a call to talk through your SEO. Use Loom. I record literally that, instant upload. So there's no export upload, and then I'll ping it to a person immediately. And that always stands out as different. And then I sometimes don't even need to send a proposal, because they're like, oh wow, this was different.
Sorry, what was that?
Use Looms. So use like U-S-E and then Loom. I've never used this thing, did I? Brilliant.
So that's something you record on your phone, like a little video?
So no, that's something I use on my laptop, which is cool. What I do on my phone is I use AZ screen recorder. So that's another differentiator. Sometimes people ask me about an issue they're having, and I'll record while I'm at a pub or I'm at a bus stop. I'll record my screen and be like, okay, so I'm just on your website, these are my thoughts, la-di-da-di-da, and I'll ping them like a thing. The other thing is WhatsApp. I force all my clients to use WhatsApp.
Oh, wow.
Because I voice note everybody. And all of them, 100% of them have caved and said, Deepak, WhatsApp is so much more efficient than actually sending an email, because then I have the ability to be underground, and I'll send 15 different WhatsApp voice notes, because I will save a client's name, Femi client, George client, and then I'll write the word client, and I'll quickly look and I'll be like, who have I not messaged for a little while? Okay, boom. Hey George, what's up, dude? Just thought I'd check in, see how you're doing, just to let you know this is what's happening, la-di-da-di-da, see you, goodbye, thanks. My clients love it, because at Deepak, you have so much more dialogue with me than the average person. So the proactivity has helped me in times where things are going bad, because I'll have a bad month sometimes without Deepak. I love the fact that you stay engaged, stay involved. So I try and get everybody to bend to WhatsApp voice notes.